Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to the Newsman Weekly Podcast, episode number 39. Thanks again to all of you for joining us again today. We know you could spend your free time in a lot of ways. There are records being kept of how Grant Ritchey spends his free time, and I'm sure law enforcement is paying careful and close attention. So we are grateful that you choose to spend time with us each week here on the Newsman Weekly Podcast. This show is growing by leaps and bounds each and every week. I know with me, when I had a spare moment this weekend, I spent it watching the Formula One season opening race in Melbourne, Australia. Well done to Lando Norris and McLaren for the season opening win. I'd hope to see a bit better performance for Lewis Hamilton in his debut race for Ferrari, but hey, it's just one race, and now we're off to China for this weekend, race 2 on the schedule.
What time's that on, like in the middle of the night?
Well, the Melbourne race, I believe, started at midnight, our time, but thanks to the glory of DVR and things like that,
right.
When I got up Sunday morning and did the Iditarod stuff, I was then able to just watch it at my leisure. Hey, my thanks once again to local country singer Luke Watson for crafting this show's theme song, Smoke and Drink, indeed. For now, I'm joined once again by Zac Hiser, the executive producer of the Newsman Weekly, and Grant Ritchey from Knox Pages, the show's official videographer, for at least one more week. Gentlemen, how the hell was your weekend? Hiser, I saw your Cavs got smoked on Sunday afternoon by a crappy Orlando Magic team. Clearly, you still don't think this team has a shot at a deep playoff run.
Season's over. And, my kids aren't eating until Kenny Atkinson gets fired.
There you go.
So,
Children's Services will be contacted.
No, I was at the game on Sunday.
Yeah?
Yeah, did you see the videos I sent?
I did,
great seats.
And I've labeled you a Cavs killer at this point.
I know. Jess was even saying, they're going to lose. Because we're going. So,
Well, clearly this is a
fault.
team that managed to win 16 games in a row before you and Jess showed up and put a stop to that tomfoolery.
I know, we sure did.
Isn't that the longest winning streak in the franchise history?
It might be.
I think so.
It might be. They've had 2 15-game winning streaks this year. So, it might be the best run of basketball we'll ever watch.
No, listen, you can't read too much into it because, we didn't have Evan Mobley out there. And, every team is trying to beat the Cavs because, we've only lost 10 games and now 11 games. So, even teams that aren't going to have a deep playoff run like us, at least they can say, I beat the Cavs that one time. So, we'll watch out, Boston. We're coming.
Well, Richie, I assume with the return of good weather, you spent your weekend camped in an outdoor beer garden somewhere in Knox County?
St. Patrick's Day weekend.
Yeah.
No, I did go out with some friends Saturday night, out to Flappers. Shout out Flappers in Mount Vernon. But they had some karaoke. No, I did not sing a song, but I did put in Fast Car, but I wasn't able to sing it.
Why not? They didn't let you up?
Not the Luke Combs version. No.
They've heard you before, and you were denied the microphone.
No, I left before. I think there was 5 people ahead of me, and we decided to leave beforehand.
You chickened out.
Yeah. Sorry.
So what exactly does a wild Saturday night in Mount Vernon look like when Richie and his friends let their hair down and get crazy?
We tried to go to 2 other bars around it was 9:30 and they were closed. I'm like, how can you be closed on St. Patrick's Day weekend? You
should have come up to the big city in Mansfield.
Yeah.
Our bars are open.
It had to be someplace
past 9:30 on Saturday.
Had to be someplace open in Danville. I mean, get out there and crank. Hey, folks watching on YouTube today may see a special drink in my hand. It's a hot cup of coffee from Relax. It's just coffee, which today became an official new sponsor of the Newsman Weekly Podcast. Woohoo!
Clap track.
Many thanks to Paul Kimmerling and the good people at Relax for joining our team here at Richland Source. I know since we started this madness last summer, different folks in our advertising department have come to me offering different sponsors, national automakers,
sure,
tech companies,
right,
chain restaurants, and I said, guys, no. I want a local business that's going to benefit from being associated with a brand like the Newsman Weekly podcast. And we have found that now with Paul Kimmerling and Relax It's Just Coffee, and we are grateful to have them on board.
Very grateful. We turned down millions of dollars to allow Relax to have the spot.
Sorry, Jack Links.
Oh, stop with the Jack Links. We're not doing that anymore. Folks, there are a lot of places you can get a cup of coffee these days, but there's only one Relax It's Just Coffee, located at 105 North Main Street in Mansfield. It's the only coffee with the old Newsman stamp of approval. So go get one today and tell them the Newsman sent you. Please tell them we sent you so they know that somebody's listening.
Right.
Thank you very much. Hey, we got another great show lined up for you today. We'll be joined in a few minutes by Doug Wertz, the president of the Mansfield Playhouse Board, and also the Community Theater's artistic director. The Playhouse announced last week that it was launching a $7.5 million capital campaign to build a new community theater at its East 3rd Street location in downtown Mansfield. Doug's going to give us all the details in just a few minutes, so please stay tuned for that. But before that, let's get to a little bit of news. A Mansfield native, Matthew Failor, did his hometown proud in Alaska on Saturday, racing home to finish 11th in the 2025 Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race from Fairbanks to Nome. Failor began the 1,128-mile race on March 3rd. He finished Saturday night around 11:37 p.m. Eastern Time, and I know that because it was way past my bedtime, but I stayed up. Completed the epic adventure in 12 days, 7 hours, and 37 minutes. He stopped along Front Street in Nome just before the finish line and picked up his 21-month-old son Theo, who rode along with his dad to the finish line where Matt's wife Liz was waiting. What Matt didn't know, and I did because Liz told me about it during the week, is she had a surprise waiting for him, a gender reveal party. Matt and Liz are expecting their second child in August. She went to the doctor while Matt was out on the trail and found out the baby's gender. She handed Matt a box at the finish line that simply said the best is yet to come. When he opened it, there was a pair of blue booties and an ultrasound photo of soon-to-be baby boy Failor.
Oh,
it's a big,
that's adorable.
I mean, they got engaged at a finish line of a sled dog race. I think it was a Kuskokwim. Not sure exactly, but I think that was it. So now another great announcement at the finish line.
Did he ask her to marry him at the finish?
Yes.
So he was carrying the ring the whole race? Wow.
Yes. So congratulations to Matt on another great Iditarod run, his 14th, and to the entire Failor family. His parents, Tim and Cheryl, were there. It'll be it was great to see them on camera as well. And the Failor family will have another great addition up in Willow, Alaska. I had a great time following and reporting on Matt's efforts again this year on Richland Source. Our exclusive daily coverage was made possible through the support of St. Peter's School, which was Matt's alma mater, and was done in cooperation with the Iditarod.com Insider website. I'm going to be talking to Matt the next day or so, find out when he and Liz and Theo are going to get back in town. We would love to set up another evening with Matthew Failor where folks can come in and sit and listen, and Matt can regale us with some tales from what was an epic Iditarod run this year.
Yeah, 12 days, man.
Yeah.
All that. I mean, you lived and breathed it every day.
Yeah.
But and you're like, 12 days is a long time to just cover this around the
12
clock.
days is a long time.
He's out on the trail.
Yeah, 12 days is a long time to stay in a posh hotel.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
12 days sleeping with dogs on the ground. And, I don't think people realize it enough. If Matt stops the dog team to rest for 5 hours, he might get to rest for an hour or plus of that.
Right.
Because as soon as you get into a checkpoint, you got to check on the dogs. You got to get them water.
Feed them.
You got to feed them.
Boil the water.
Boil the water. Feed them. Put down straw. Get them situated. Make sure they're comfortable. Once all that's done, then maybe you can rest a little bit. And then you got to start waiting. These sled dogs, these Alaskan Huskies, are a lot like kids, little kids. When you first pull into a checkpoint, by and large, they really don't want to stop. They're barking, they're happy, they want to keep going. You can't get them to settle down. But once you do, like a little kid and they go to sleep, they don't want to get up again. They're happy, they're warm,
Right.
they're sleeping, they don't want to be bothered. So you got to start the process early. Just like, Zach, when you get your kids off to school in the morning, you got to wake them up early
Right.
because they're not instant on.
Exactly.
It's absolutely
Turn on the
same.
lights and
Yeah.
start stirring around and
You know, you
Yep.
got to wake them up with the dogs. You got to put new booties on them. You got to rub them up. You got to love on them.
right.
And once they get going again, they're happy. But hey, you know, while we're talking Iditarod one more moment, we love a good list, right?
Oh yeah.
So I put together my own top 5 list of Matt's moments on the 2025 Iditarod Trail. And I'll be anxious to talk with him at some point to see if he agrees with me on what I thought were his top 5 moments. So I'll count them down 5 to 1. Richie, are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Number 5, racing away from the start of the ceremonial start in Anchorage on March 1 with Theo strapped to his chest and wife Liz standing and riding behind him, holding hands as they started the race off there in Anchorage. That would be moment number 5. Number 4, taking the time and care during the race to spread the ashes of his old friend Jim Davis. Jim was an Iditarod finisher, a longtime race judge. Jim passed away last year in 2024, I believe during the summer. And Matt talked to his wife about the possibility of taking him on one last Iditarod run. His wife was in agreement. So
That's
they
really
had
cool.
they had some ashes inside a couple of dog booties that Jim used back in the 1992 race. And Matt and Jim's wife agreed on which locations they would spread the ashes. Matt did that. And then when he came into the finish line in Nome, his lead dogs were wearing those same booties that Jim had used way back in 1992. So that's number 4. Number 3, Matt's decision to take his 24-hour mandatory break far earlier than he planned at the Tignana checkpoint, just 202 miles into the race. That, if you remembered coverage that we talked about at Richland Source, that was when they came through a sand blizzard, silt. There are a lot of sandbars on the Yukon River. Actually, it's the Tignana River, which feeds into the Yukon. But it was frozen, glare ice, sand and silt blowing everywhere. Matt told Liz that he believes his team got lost for 45 minutes to an hour because they got turned around, zero visibility. So he gets into Tignana, and basically his dogs are really sore. They're really tired. I think he said if he had done normal rest, he probably would have had to drop, several dogs at that point because they simply wouldn't have been ready to go.
Right.
Mushers like to take that 24-hour break farther down the trail.
Right.
They were, at least halfway, if maybe not
It's
halfway.
kind of like when you
but-
want your bye week in the NFL
Right.
season. You don't want it like week 4.
Exactly.
You
And
want
from an NFL season standpoint, Matt took his bye week in like week 2.
Right.
I mean, it was fairly early in the race. If you look at it, when you consider he has another almost 1,000 miles to go, he ran a complete Iditarod without a 24-hour.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But it paid off. Matt knows his dogs better than anybody. He worked with the veterinarians, got some advice on massaging and things like that. He managed his team well. He took care of them at the checkpoint. When he left Tignana, I really don't know how to pronounce the word. Tignana?
Don't know.
I'll have to ask Matt. So that's the nice thing about being a print journalist. I don't have to say it.
Right.
I just have to type it a lot. But when he left that checkpoint, he was running in 31st place. So he
Okay.
passed a whole bunch of
Wow.
people along the way
And he
to finish 11th
yeah.
on Saturday night. So the early break, veteran move that paid off for Matt. Number 2, and this was a lot of fun. He outdueled veteran Nick Petit's Saturday during the 71-mile run from White Mountain down to Nome. Nick and Matt basically left about the same time. These are both 2 veteran mushers. They've known each other a long time. They're great friends. And it's basically a sprint, 71 miles. I believe Nick had 11 dogs in harness and Matt had 7, the Super 7. But he managed to stave off Nick going down to the finish line. Nick is originally from France. And when Matt got to the finish line, Matt quoted an old, not an old movie, but a movie, I don't know, going on 20 years old, Talladega Nights. And he said, I think the quote was, Frenchie can drive. But Ricky Bobby won this time. So
nice.
That was a great moment, and I followed that all the way down. And there was just 1 or 2 miles separating them most of the way down the run from White Mountain.
Wow.
And the number one moment, that gender reveal party at the finish line. Folks, it doesn't get any cuter than that.
Yeah, and when little Theo and the new baby they're going to be mushing before you know it, and I'm sure you'll be around to cover.
Yeah,
Cover
maybe,
that, yeah.
maybe not. Maybe I'll be scenting, drinking mint juleps or some bourbon variety and just hanging out and watching on TV or the internet as best I can. But anyway, congratulations to the whole Failor clan for another great Iditarod experience. So what else is making news? Hey, Lexington Spring Mill Road is ready for another restaurant, at least according to building permits in Richland County. It appears Wingstop is going to build a new restaurant right near Five Guys and Panda Express, 994 Lexington Spring Mill Road. That'll be just down the road from the Raising Cane's that's expected to open in July at 720 Lex Spring Mill. Now keep in mind there's already a Roosters at 2140 West 4th Street and a Buffalo Wild Wings at 990 Lex Spring Mill Road. So if you want chicken wings, Richie, here in a few months, Ontario is going to be the place to be.
Chicken City, USA.
How many other chicken places are there in that area, Carl?
I don't know. How many more do you need?
Can we do a bracket?
A bracket of chicken wings?
Yeah.
I don't know. I patronize them all. I will happily patronize Raising Cane's when it opens. I'll patronize Wingstop.
Can you get beer at Raising Cane's?
I don't know.
No, I think you can get lemonade there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well,
Or sweet
Carl's
tea.
out then.
Well, I mean, there's a reason I have a stool or bar seat at Roosters.
At Roosters, I know. I've seen you there before.
With my name on it. Hey, speaking of Ontario, a 51-acre lot near Stumbo and Ferguson Roads could support more than 200 homes if Ontario City Council grants a rezone request for that proposal. Planning Commission members last week heard from Holden Agency CEO Jerry Holden and engineer Keith Amstutz about a proposed unit development zone for the land near Stoll Park and Maple Ridge Villas. Holden said, quote, "We're not looking to build apartments or multifamily homes. I don't feel the product placement for Ontario's multifamily. I think it's more single family. And we're proposing detached homes with the same density as R2 housing. His plans include about 10 feet between houses. At a full build-out, the 51 acres could support somewhere between 200 and 250 homes in a county that is in need of more housing." Holden said, basically what we're doing is taking a 3,000-square-foot duplex or twin home that the space is zoned for, splitting it in half to keep the same density but make single-family homes. Amstutz, who's a civil engineer, said single-family homes on the lot can support families who want to move into Ontario. He said, quote, "For younger families and young professionals, the thinking is they would prefer a single-family home, even if it's somewhat close to your neighbor." The Planning Commission will discuss that request again at its April 9th meeting and decide whether to recommend or discourage council approval for the planned unit development zone.
And these are homes that they're building, not apartments, right?
Right. These would be single-family homes, and they would be very close to a place that will soon have not one, not two, not three, but 4 places to go get chicken wings.
Very important.
So, Richie, if you'd like to move up and get a single-family home, you'll be right next to...
Tell the chickens to stay away.
Yeah, tell the chickens to stay away. As long as they give us eggs, we'll be okay. All right, gentlemen, anything else for the good of the order before we take a break?
I don't think so.
All right, well, that's enough for now. Let's take that break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Doug Wertz from the Mansfield Playhouse, who's going to tell us all about a new $7.5 million capital campaign to build a new community theater in downtown Mansfield. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly. Joining us now, as promised, is Doug Wertz, Artistic Director and Board President at the Mansfield Playhouse. Good morning, Doug.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for joining us so damn early in the morning.
Yes, thank you for that. It's just going to be an extended day, but hey, it's all well worth it.
You know, as I've often told people, never let it be said, I won't do the least I can do.
It's almost lunchtime for you, right, Carl?
Well, the last couple of weeks, right about now, I'm ready to take
Is
a
that
nap.
done?
Matt Failor finished Saturday night.
11th
place at 11:37 p.m.
Yeah.
Deadline writing is something I've not experienced in a while, but it's kind of fun to get back into that. Hey, speaking of deadlines, you folks down at the Playhouse made some news last week, some pretty really, really big news. Tell us what's going on down there.
Well, the big news is that we have been dreaming for, several years, many, many years, about making a facility that is accessible to all community members. So we have kicked off a capital campaign for $7.5 million to build a whole new Mansfield Playhouse right next door to where we are, so we don't have to shut down. I think that's important for people to know. Although it was a little bit confusing. It says it's going to be on the same property. It is. We own the property to the west of us, and so we will be building there and maintaining a regular season in the existing building until we can open that one up and go from there.
Well, what kind of take us back to the early stages of when you started thinking about this idea of a new community theater there at 95 East 3rd Street in downtown Mansfield.
My goodness. The fact of the matter is that I've been involved with the Playhouse for many, many years, as you know, since 1978 in some capacity. And I knew back then that it was an issue and a concern for ADA compliance to make sure that you're accessible to all. And it was really an issue for all of the board members back then. And so I don't know how many times we've had architects come in and take a look at everything. So that's where it really stems from, clear back then. But when I came back on full time, which was back in 2014, something like that, I don't remember. I had always thought there's got to be a way to make this work in Mansfield. We have to have something. And I had a concept in my head. And so on a slow day, I started scouting the internet, and I happened to see these floor plans for a primary auditorium. And I zoomed in on them, and I thought, my gosh, somebody's in my head. This is fantastic. So I printed off the photograph that I could find, and I put that on my office wall. And that was 5-6 years ago, and it stuck on my back wall just behind my seat. And finally, the pandemic, we went through all of that, and we went through the renovation for the pandemic and spruced up the main auditorium, did a whole lot of improvements because we thought, now's the time. We're forced.
Right.
We're forced to shut down. Let's get bigger and better and stronger. We don't need to be bigger. In fact, we reduced the number of seating just to address some of the safety issues. But the concern has always been that we can't get people up or down the stairs. And that building, as you know, is full of stairs.
Yes.
So I reached out to the board and I said, you guys, what do you say we invest in ourselves and let's do something with what we have and let's think about a new building. And the board was like, this sounds great. This is wonderful. What do you have? And I showed them. But I'm going to back up a little bit because before I did that, I actually found the architect who drew those plans that I found online, and he was out of Oregon. So I contacted him and said, hey, are these plans available for sale? You buy house plans anywhere. But
Right.
he said, he says, I'm not registered in the state of Ohio. But he said, give me your email address and I'll send these files to you PDF. He sent everything to me, the mechanicals and everything for this main auditorium. I mean, everything that he did.
Now, what was the name of this town in Oregon?
Talent, Oregon.
Talent, Oregon.
Yeah.
Something this room knows nothing about.
No. And
Myself included in that.
It was the Camelot Theater in
All right.
Talent, Oregon. And they were faced with a dilemma at the time, too, but that's a whole other story.
Once upon a time, there was Camelot.
There was Camelot. But they Yeah, because of their option. But it was designed so it was very efficient and inexpensive to build, and they had a smaller dollar amount to raise. So he sent me all of these files, and of course they only have the single stage venue. Well, for folks that have never been to the Mansfield Playhouse, we have a 2-stage venue. We have our main stage auditorium, and then we have the second stage, which is just below us on the main auditorium. And that's where we set up for cabaret style, and we do, seat 70, 75 people in there during those productions. And those are part of the 9 productions that we do in 10 months. We have 2 second stage productions. And so we wanted to maintain that venue, but everything had to be accessible. So we decided to change those plans a little bit and add the second stage to the rear of the building with its own ADA compliant facilities through the main entrance. That way you don't have to go from the first floor of 3rd Street and go all the way back through the theater back to the second stage. You can still park and now go up to the ramp and go into the second stage venue as well. So those changes were done, and I had these some rearrangement of things that needed to be done, and reached out to local architect Dan Suckle and said, "Hey Dan, do you think you could put this concept up for us?" He goes, "No, Doug, I'm retiring." You know that, right? So I said, "No, Dan." He goes, "This is a good project.
Yeah.
I'll do it." So he did, and then he
retired.
I think he retired. I think he had some projects he was still working on. Yeah. But so that's really where it all stems from, and where we're headed at this moment. We've been planning this for quite some time, and there's been a lot of pre-planning over the last year.
Now this is a very good year to kick it off in, because this is a pretty special year in the history of the Mansfield Playhouse, right?
Yes, the roots of the Mansfield Playhouse started with the community players in 1925. Guess what? 100 years.
100 years.
2025 is 100 years. Now we've been in our current facility for the last 60, almost 60, not quite. And we've been blessed with it. There are a lot of community theaters in the state of Ohio that just don't even have a facility. They're traveling troops for the most part. So Mansfield is truly blessed to have what we have. But the poor thing is just falling apart. And the mission that the founding fathers or founding members of the community players put together has never been fully fulfilled because of the fact that we cannot serve all community members. And I think it's important to know that nearly 12% of the population in Richland County under the age of 65 has some physical disability. That's almost 15,000 people under the age of 65. Now, put in the seniors that we have.
Old folks like me and you.
And I'm still trying to go those stairs. It's a little tough to do that. But, so you've got to consider those people who, with part of our mission in exposing people to the cultural arts, the theatrical arts of what we do, and then learn from one another, because we use community people. The talent in this area has obviously been shown and been proven and grown for the last 100 years, and that's because of the community involvement.
Now, one of the things I believe you did when you got into let's actually think about doing this, and you realize you've got a fairly hefty kind of price tag here. This is not an inexpensive plan.
Right.
Raising money. So you reached out to Chris Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Harris is kind of over the years around here, has kind of been the fundraising guru for a lot of projects. And when you met with Chris, how did that initial meeting go?
Well, I think Chris was a little skeptical when she first came in.
I met Chris in 1990 when we were reporters at the News Journal, and I can tell you Chris is always skeptical.
You probably have to be skeptical for raising money all the time. You kind of know what works.
Well, look, let's face it. The pool is the same pool for the most part, right? I mean, that's the challenge of it all. so it's always a scary process, especially when you're trying to raise the money that we're trying to raise, and that was very scary. And we don't know those people. All we do is theater. Right?
Yeah, you had not met Chris before.
I had not met Chris before. So
talk about that meeting.
Well, reached out to Chris. Somebody, I think it was you, that said, "Hey, why don't you call Chris?" And so we did, and she says, "I'll come down. I'll give you 15 minutes." Okay. Well, she came on down, and you could tell by the way she entered the room that there was a skepticism. There was still a reluctance, and she sat down with Tammy and I. We were the only ones at the theater at the time, and we sat there, and she says, "So, what are you doing? Because I don't know. What do you tell me about the Playhouse? Because I don't know anything about it." Well, the meeting lasted 2.5 hours. And by the time she was done, she was all smiles, and she says, "Let me do some thinking on this."
Mm-hmm.
And about a week later, she calls up and she says, "I want to come back and talk to you." And we said, "Okay." Because we were like hanging. We didn't know, are we going to do this? What can we do? And she said, "I've tested the waters. I think I want to do this. But I want you to know, though, I'm retiring."
She and Dan Seckler are riding off into the sunset together, huh?
She says, "I'm retiring," but she said, "But this. I really want this to be my last hurrah. I think that this is a special project, so we're full bore." So we're blessed. Her development team has been fantastic. So
now, one of the things that I've noticed when you and being around the Playhouse now for the last 15 years and more so in recent years, I don't think people, realize that this building was not constructed as a theater.
Right.
So talk about the origins of this building, which I think started out as like a basement church.
It was a basement church. It was actually ordained as the Grace Christian Tabernacle or something like that. Grace Gospel Tabernacle.
I always went to the Corner Tabernacle myself, usually on Saturday nights, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, it was ordained. It was built in, I believe, 1920. It was actually ordained as a church in October 10th in 1920 as a basement church. So it was only a single level building, which stepped down just slightly below grade once you came in the front doors, which is our second stage area now. And then in the 40s, they added the second floor, which means that a whole lot of, I'd like to see the construction plans for that, because somewhere along the line they put up a bunch of metal I-beams, steel I-beams, and constructed this 40-foot span for the main auditorium and put in a proscenium. So it wasn't built as a church. It was built for a church, but in 1966, the theater group purchased the building, and then they opened their first production in 1967, which was Brigadoon.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Brigadoon.
Brigadoon.
The most overproduced
and
community theater, musical extravaganza of all time. Brigadoon.
And if you ever want to celebrate an anniversary for anything, you have to do Brigadoon.
You have to do Brigadoon. Yet another musical I can't do because, quite frankly, I can't sing or dance. So
you kind of need those skills.
Yeah, although the last couple
the triple threat, Carl Hunnell.
Yeah, a couple of times Doug has cast me in roles in which I've had to briefly dance and once I believe sing. And as long as we can turn it into a bit,
sure.
Get him some auto tune or something.
No, there's no auto tune in the world that can cover that up. But I know the west side of the building has kind of borne the brunt over the years from the weather. Tell us a little bit about the west side of the building, the deterioration, and I know you guys have done yeoman-like work in trying to preserve the building, but
we have, we've over the years we've covered the windows, we've insulated and covered the windows with steel sheeting that served two purposes: to black out the sunlight coming into the auditorium, of course, the daylight, the street lights and things like that, but also to try to help weatherproof and insulate. But they're old metal sash windows, and the water is just seeping around all over the place. The building is settling. The other thing is I'm not sure if there was a some kind of a seal coat or anything, some kind of a temper that happens with brick when you put brick buildings together. But for the most part, our building currently is brick, and what happens is on the west side of that building, it gets hit really hard. That's where the jet stream comes across, and we're always getting slammed with rain, hard driving rain. Well, that's really done a lot of things to the building. First of all, the brick is almost saturated. It just absorbs the moisture,
and
which
it's
has
105. It's a 105-year-old brick.
Yeah, which leaches into the inside, to the plaster, into the upper level of the walls, and we've put a new roof on that. We've put new flashing on the buildings. We've done whatever we can, but we can't stop it coming in simply from the brick. We've had the building at one point. It was tuck pointed to make sure that it wasn't coming in through all of the mortar joints. Well, that wasn't it. It's actually coming through the brick. So beyond that, the weather has not been kind. The sidewalk that's on the west side of the building, which leads to the fire escape, which doubles as our loading dock. And that's a picture in itself, isn't it?
Knock on wood, pray to God, knock on wood again, that fire escape never has to be used in anger.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
It's functional.
As long as I can stay functional, it's functional too now.
Anybody who's ever seen me try to step down with a couch in my hand about a foot onto the fire escape and then drop another 2 or 3 feet down to the bed of the truck.
It's closer to probably 18 inches down.
Yeah, it's a step.
But you almost got a 3 or 4 foot span from the fire escape across the retaining wall onto the truck.
Well, you can't really call it a retaining wall anymore.
No, because
it's just not really retaining anything.
No, it's holding the gravel onto the sidewalk that's spilled over from the retaining wall into the side of the building. But so it's a challenge to maintain everything down there. So
now, one of the things I noticed, and I be honest, I don't look that closely all the time because I'm not always a very observant person, but when we were looking around the theater when I wrote the story last week, back during COVID, you and Tammy and probably maybe some volunteers repainted the entire main auditorium, the walls, everything.
Yeah.
And that was just 5 years ago.
Right.
And since then, I'm looking last week, that water damage is already visibly showing through less than 5 years later.
Plaster has fallen down. It's leaching through the walls, and that was all patched. And it evidently doesn't matter if you can't stop it coming from the outside in. And water has a way of finding its path of least resistance. So keeping up with that is terrible. Even on the east side of the building, we're having water and now peeling paint, and some of the plaster starting to drop and crumbling. But even downstairs, in the place that I would never thought there would be a problem, down above the second stage concession area, there's some crumbling going on there, and I'm not real sure why. But you can see it as soon as you walk in the lobby. You can see the water damage that has taken place throughout the years. It's in the baseboards, the doors are warped. Everything it's just, the poor old thing has just outlived its life. And to address the safety issues and truly serve the community, we need to start the next 100 years and develop generations to come in a new facility.
Yeah, one of the things that even if you had a way, a freight elevator or something to move people from the first floor to the second floor, I hope they don't need to use the restroom during the show, because the restrooms are not ADA accessible in any way.
No, the restrooms are even below the grade of the street level. You come in street level, and then it's below that to get to the restrooms. And because of the staircases that are there, you would need a 34-foot ramp to gain access to those restrooms, and there's no space for that. You can't do it. And let's face it, everybody says, well, we've got a lift, we've got an elevator. And we've looked at other spaces before we decided to do just the straight-on new facility, because we tried to see if we could repurpose another building downtown or something, but it's just not feasible for the safety and stability. The fact of the matter is that an elevator is only as safe as it is when the power's on.
Right.
Then what do you do? If there's an emergency, you've got safety issues, we've got to make sure that the entire population is taken care of there. This new building, everything would be up to code, fire suppression systems, the whole 9 yards. I mean, we really want to leave this organization and feel like the community has supported this organization for the last 100 years. Why not make it a destination place and bring people from outside in? Carl, we pull in from an 80-mile radius on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
But we're pulling in more and more all of the time from around the country. And if you look at our demographic map through our ticket sales software, you can see that it radiates very hot in an 80-mile radius. And as it goes on and goes on, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, New York, we pull all from those areas as well. But we have pulled from 32 different states across the country, and that's still growing. Now, obviously, we have parents and grandparents, but there are other folks that, when they come in, they find it a hidden gem, and it's something that I'm very proud of to be a part of, and I think that Mansfield should be proud of it as well.
I mean, one of the things that has, the last few years has been so much discussion about is Mansfield Rising, kind of the rebirth of the downtown.
Mm-hmm.
When you build this new theater, you're actually closer to the downtown.
Yeah. One step closer, But it really could signal the revitalization of the Mansfield Playhouse or the theater project, the Playhouse district, let's say.
Right.
Because we're right now with the properties that we own at 95 East 3rd Street. We own the lot to the west of us. We own the lot to the east of us, and we own the lots behind us, and we have a warehouse in the back. There's other buildings there that could be brought up and revitalized, reused, and built up. We've got some great places downtown. There's some good places to go to eat, and there's good places to shop now. There's some nice small businesses down there. And if we can draw in for the theater, the average theater goer spends about between $31 and $34 a piece for a show. Pre-show drinks, post-show conversations. They want meals, so they want to go to those restaurants. You got to think of the development with the Hudson and Essex that we have downtown, City Grill's downtown, the Phoenix is downtown. We're going to have the new distillery downtown. We've got the warehouse right there. There's all kinds of nice places to get together. And then, obviously, those are just a few, because I think that the people that have really put their heart and soul downtown understand the importance of the vitality of that economic environment. And I think that we contribute to that.
Yeah, because I know there's talk about with what's taking place at the former Westinghouse property. Mm-hmm. And the idea, I hear them talking about finding some way to want to link and connect the Westinghouse with the downtown. And you guys are kind of a natural halfway point, kind of a link between the heart of the downtown and where Westinghouse development might occur. Mm-hmm. You guys are like halfway through that.
I think that's important, too, logistically, because if they find a developer that's going to put some multi-purpose residential and commerce buildings together down there, and they still need an entertainment venue, and that's all because I think they're talking more restaurants and things like that. Man, what a great place! That would be a great growth opportunity for Mansfield, especially when we have to bring and face the housing crisis that everybody has too, when it comes right down to it. If they can do that and make downtown living more accessible, and then it puts us, you're right in the heart of things.
Now, Again, along the lines of Best Kept Secret in Mansfield, you guys are, I think, the second oldest continuously operating community theater in the state of Ohio. 9 shows a year, 5 main adult shows, 2 youth shows upstairs, 2 second stage shows. With the new theater, when you get it built and when it opens, what can people expect? Will you still maintain that kind of ambitious production schedule, or what are the thoughts there?
Well, I think that this will be a board decision, and we'll have to see how things work out. But it is a very aggressive schedule for any community theater. Most community theaters will do 3, maybe 4 shows a year. But to add to what you were talking about, and let me get to the answer to that in a roundabout way. Sorry for the tangent, but the fact of the matter is that we've become a more civic-minded theater too. We're bringing other artists in between our own productions. It's a very aggressive schedule for us. Our own productions are 9 shows in 10 months for our regular season, but we're doing concerts. We're doing the partnerships with NAMI, and with the CIT training for our first responders. We're doing film screenings.
Comedians.
Yeah, we're doing stand-up comedians, and I have more and more comedians reaching out all of the time. I spoiled them, I guess.
Well, you've got a big, I think, blues show.
We've got the Blues
up in
Fest
May.
coming,
Yeah.
and that those things are not necessarily Playhouse productions, but we've made it available for the venue to be able to do that, and I think that's just adding so much more downtown for the cultural aspect of it. So with the new building and the second stage venue, right now we have because of our progressive schedule, that they're stacked. Our rehearsals are stacked on top of a production. So, for example, we closed a show on Sunday, but let's go back even further. We opened the show, Said the Spider to the Spy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we opened that show, and we did a Friday and Saturday. The next Tuesday and Wednesday, we had auditions for the next show. It was cast. We close out the current production on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday matinee, strike the set. I was back in on Monday, rebuilt the set, and we are in rehearsals for the next show already. When we do second stage or children's theater, that second stage area becomes a I affectionately call it Candy Sweatshop down there. When she has volunteers down there for costuming, she turns it into a costume house.
You have 40 to 45 young people.
40 to 40, yeah.
In the cast.
Yes, cast and crew and parents, and they're all kicking in to do all of this stuff. Well, we're sharing that space. But by adding or keeping the second stage venue towards the back, we have an opportunity for more revenue source and more highlight of local talents. We can do more acoustic sets, open mics, comedy club. We can do a lot more with that, and that will help us support the main mission of the main stage. My thought process, if we can make this work, then would be that, and we have to work around those people that volunteer, because our casts are not paid people. We're not professionals, but we sure, strive to be as professional as we can while we're on stage. But I think it would be more important to reduce the number of shows that we do on the main stage, or extend our main stage season well into the summer. One way or the other. There's 2 ways to approach this. The one is to reduce it by 1 or 2 productions, but have them run longer, 3 weekends instead of 2. The reason for that is because of the price of materials are skyrocketing, right? However, with our very frugal management of the funds that we do have to work with, our sets we reuse, repurpose, and recycle everything. I mean, there are wall flats, there are scrap pieces of Luan that's got 30 years of paint on them somewhere.
I was going to say that the last time I helped strike a set was a couple of weeks ago, and I swear I've taken the same piece of floor molding off 18 times in the last 15 years. I might be exaggerating just a little bit.
I'll bet you're not. I'll bet you're not.
Just
you
keep painting over the nail holes.
I was going to say just count the back of the nail holes, and you can see how many times that's been put up. But if by doing that, we would reduce the cost of production expense. We would have to pay the royalties for the extra weekend, but it would allow us to extend weekends. Our best form of advertisement is word of mouth, and I'm really happy that we have the local advocates for our facility that we have. Our organization has a huge fan base, and I'm very fond of that. But we're still the best kept secret in Mansfield for some reason or another. It's like living on the lake and never going swimming.
Right.
Why?
Yeah, we have this great theater.
It's a beautiful view. I'm afraid to put my toes in. It's not that way. You should come down, see some great live theater. That's what that's what it's all about. We learn from one another. We have a lot of fun doing it, and we leave lifelong friends.
Now, if folks want to find out more information about how they can participate, A, in the Mansfield Playhouse in general, or B, contribute or take part in some way in this capital campaign, I know you've got links up now at mansfieldplayhouse.com.
Yes.
I believe there's a video.
There is a video.
People, it kind of explains, takes people behind the scenes, shows them some of the things we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I put that video up in a story last week. We'll put links to this stuff in the show notes for today's show as well. How else can people kind of participate or get involved in some way to kind of help push this ball forward?
Well, if anybody wants more information, we do have another pamphlet out there as well to give you, and you can look at that. But you can also call down to the theater at 419, excuse me, 419-522-2883. And if you want some more information, would like to set up a meeting, think about contributing, please give us a call. I would be happy to sit down with anybody and just fill you in about the Mansfield Playhouse. But you can donate online. You can send funds into Mansfield Playhouse at 95 East 3rd Street, Mansfield, Ohio 44902. If you want to get involved, there is a volunteer sheet that you can sign up from our website as well. There's a Get Involved tab on the website, so you can go to that, and there's a form that you can fill out. We're doing whatever we can to make ourselves accessible to you, and hopefully we have everyone join us in this adventure.
And while you're there, folks, on the website, go ahead and order your tickets for Who's On First.
Oh.
Which is going to be a great comedy. We've got the return to the stage of the great Ryan Kiley.
Yeah, the Jim Carrey of Mansfield.
Yes, he's going to be back on stage in this show with a stellar cast. April 18, 19, 25, 26, and 27. You want to get your tickets now because that is going to be...
It's going to sell.
It is going to be a rollicking good time.
It is hilarious. We've only been in rehearsals for 1 week, and we've not been able to get through a rehearsal yet without just busting up. It is a great script, number one, and the characters are so much fun. We have a great cast with Ryan Kiley and Eric Gustafson and Heidi Ankrum and Dee Dee Welshons now. Mm-hmm. And so it's only a 4-person cast, but they play a whole variety of characters. They actually play the same character with a variety of personalities. Let's say it. How we'll put it that way.
Oh, it's perfect. Then.
Yeah,
get to do different things,
so I can relate to them. But it's a lot of fun.
All right, Doug. I'm going to give you the chance to wrap us up and tell us anything about the Mansfield Playhouse or the capital campaign that I haven't asked you about that you want to make sure people know.
I think that it's just important that people understand, and I would ask them to do a little research on the importance of community theater in a community, period. Not just for the learning and teaching aspects of it, but from the social economic benefits of it as well. But I think it's really important to know that we have such a following, and the success stories that come out of being involved in something like this, and the kids that grow up through these things and become professionals that you never really hear about so much. I think it's important to understand how it changes lives. But now for the next generations to come, how we can continue to change those lives and offer the same things through the accessibility for all members despite their physical abilities. So they can get to not only become audience members, but potentially participate, because it's all going to be laid out to where it's very inclusive in that. So we need that. We need this. Mansfield needs this. And I think it's just going to be a huge cultural benefit and continue to make downtown thrive, become a destination place.
Well, thank you very much, folks. We're going to wrap up today's show on that outstanding note. Many thanks to Doug Wertz for coming in and spending time with us today to talk about the plan for a new community theater in Mansfield. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
And thanks again to all of you for listening to the Newsman Weekly. I'll be back in a second to put a bow on this week's episode. But until then, remember what Mark Twain said: if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.